Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We could have the roll, please.
Alderman Sevenick. Here. Alderman Langdon. Here. Alderman Tom Grady. Here. Alderman Ted Grady. Here. Alderman Rapella. Here. Alderman Taylor. Here. All are present with the absence of Alderman Nichols and Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda this evening is the public comments, and I do not see any public here. So we'll move on to the budget at hand, and I believe the first department up is the police department this evening. Yes,
Thank
Stan?
you. I just wanted to announce that Alderman Nichols will be here. She's said she'll be about 15 minutes late.
Okay. James?
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I wonder if you could introduce your staff to us tonight. We sometimes see them between the foggy windows of the SUVs, but it's nice when everybody's here in front of us.
You bet. So good evening, everyone, and here's our annual budget presentation. As we've done in the past, we know that the police department takes up a good amount of city resources, and we really just like to spend this time to really show you what your dollars for the city have taken care of for this past year and what we're looking at for this year. So with that being said, I know there were some comments as far as who's working or whatnot, and the overtime that's being racked up. Well, yes, we do have people here that are hourly folks. Our patrol lieutenants do work kind of a mixture of hourly and salaridly, but no one is here on overtime. And that kind of shows you the commitment that our leadership team, and this is our complete leadership team, is here tonight with. So obviously you know me. You know Deputy Chief Hanchek sitting directly to my left. So she's the number 2 person in the department. Next to her is Lieutenant Schultz. And we'll start off with Matt Lenz, kind of in the back corner over there. Lieutenant Lenz, he's actually the on-duty shift commander right now, so if you see him leaving, it's because he's helping his folks out on the road. Next to him is Lieutenant Matt Spiegel. In between them then is Lieutenant Joel Nelson, and Joel you saw this past Monday. He also still has the K-9 and works that program. The next to Joel is, if you're kind of waving or whatever, the tall guy, one of the tall guys in the back, Lieutenant Nick Thorne. Nick Thorne is the one who takes care of our investigative services, our school resource officer, our MEG unit officer, so he does kind of all the non-patrol folks. And then Lieutenant Matt Albrecht, who you met in the past as well, he takes care of our fleet and is our day shift supervisor. So with that, we'll kind of jump into our presentation. We kind of gave you the welcome already. So what we're looking at 2021, the first thing we wanted to go over is last year when we were talking, we really kind of went over what happened with COVID. And law enforcement-wise, it was a really, really weird year. So we thought it was appropriate to kind of jump in. This is just a highlight of some of the various types of calls that we have. If you remember, no one was driving last year for a period of time during COVID, and we saw a huge reduction in our crashes. This year, and these numbers are all from January of the year that listed to November 1st of this year. Crashes have gone back up, but they're nowhere near to the level that they were in 2016 to 2019. Theory behind that is that there are still a number of people that are working from home, and we are seeing less traffic out on the roads. Plus, one of the things that we've done differently with our traffic enforcement is while we have not written a significantly more amount of tickets or made those stops, we're targeting things a lot more to areas that people have concerns about or where we're seeing crashes. 911 calls, we saw a huge jump on that one in 2020, so we wanted to see if they were going up or down. Everyone's got a device, everyone's got a cell phone, so we're not anticipating that to go down anytime in the future. Fraud complaints seem to stay consistent. Our alcohol complaints, these mostly encompass OWIs. This is a little bit lower than what we would have expected, but we've also seen a transition over the last several years that we don't have a lot of bar traffic in Menasha anymore, which from an economic perspective, I don't know that the community necessarily benefits hugely off of having a lot of active bars, but it's certainly from our perspective, from a safety perspective, and people driving around intoxicated, we're certainly seeing some lower numbers there. The one after that, we talked about domestics and disturbances last year because we did see a pretty good increase in 2020 when people were all sitting at home and not getting along with one another. If you look at though 2016, 17, and 18, I don't want it to look like that there was a large amount of domestics in 2020, 2021 necessarily. We changed our reporting system through the county's reporting system of the types of calls that we have, where domestics weren't, they were lumped a little bit differently sort of in disturbances. So to really get an accurate picture, if you want to see the total, you would have to add the disturbances to the domestics to really see a trend. So 2016, we were looking over 700 a year, and now we're down to about 500-ish. And our numbers did go down for 2021 versus 2020, which again is kind of what we expected as people were going and being able to get out of the house and whatnot. Our Mcat program, that's the Menasha Community Addiction Assistance Program, that's in conjunction with other departments in the city. This is just a phenomenal program. I really have to give our hats off to Nick Olzak, who's been our community liaison officer. He's been probably the most instrumental one of identifying people who have addiction issues within the community and referring them to this program. We're closing in on over 100 people referred to the program, and we have about 40 people that are actively engaged in services. You hear a lot of things about Narcan and how often it's being used and the opioid issue that we're having in the community as a whole. This is not scientific, but what I did is I went in our computer system looking for CAD calls that had Narcan listed in it. City of Menasha had 5, and I can tell you that 2 of those we were assisting Fox Crossing, so we've had 3 this year. Fox Crossing had 17. Neenah had 15, Winnebago County Sheriff's Department had 17, and Oshkosh PD had 50. The things and the creativeness that our folks have to try to address the opioid problem is frankly second to none. And I really couldn't be more impressed with the health department for working with us primarily on this, the other city departments, and the people that are providing the services, Unity Recovery Services. It's just been a phenomenal thing.
We've recognized that we had some, is it on? Sorry, let's try this again. We recognized we had some duplicate efforts with doing payroll through a couple different processes. We've recognized that, changed things, and utilized our schedule program, which is a lad tech, in many more ways, and are also trying future things for next year. But now where payroll took a day and a half, we're down to only a half day. And our goal is to hopefully see sometime citywide where we can reduce those duplicate efforts when we can all get on the same software program and schedules can be loaded right into timesheets in the future. So we're making those steps to get there, and we'll see what the future brings.
Leadership training. So this year I was selected to attend Leadership of the Fox Cities, which is put on by the Fox Cities Chamber of Commerce. This was especially exciting for me as I'm the first representative for our police department to attend this course. For those that are unfamiliar with it, it's a 9-month based community program where we look at different issues, social issues, leadership trends and strategies, volunteerism, and things that are really impacting the Fox Valley area. There's also a group project component over the course of 9 months that we work on. My group individually were identifying and looking at the research components of how we're bringing newcomers into our community, into the Fox Valley, and how we're retaining our talent pools here to create more opportunities for jobs and other things. So with that, with the research that we acquire from our project, we're going to then be handing that over to Imagine Fox Cities, and with that they're going to look at different trends and things going forward and how we can impact the Fox Cities in the future.
This year will be our first year of re-accreditation. So initially when we go through accreditation, it's a 3-year process, or it ended up being a 2-year process, where you first get accredited, and now going forward, after that, everything is re-accredited. So you have to maintain the same standards. You just have to show that you're accredited. And with COVID, we're actually doing a 4-year accreditation. All of you, I think, should have received some information about our reaccreditation and when it is. It's coming up next week. We also sent some stuff to the Police Commission and some other different organizations within law enforcement. So that'll start next Tuesday, and it'll go for 3 days. The assessors will come here, and they will go through all of our paperwork and make sure that we're meeting standards up to accreditation.
One of our other accomplishments this year is researching our traffic camera system that we're hoping to implement next year, pending budget approval. There'll be a few slides coming up. We'll go in more detail on it. Are they next? There we go. And what we did is the Department of Public Works and our IT department partnered with us to research and look at the different options out there. What we found out and what we looked at were 3 different companies. 2 of them had very similar designs, and one of them was a little bit more specific in its law enforcement use. What we were looking at based on IT's recommendations was, how is the hardware going to be managed and the video storage. Video storage takes up a lot of time, money, and effort to maintain and manage. So we looked at both cloud-based systems and in-house storage systems. The 2 different goals we looked at is for the project are the more traditional system, which many of you may be familiar with if you've seen the City of Appleton's snapshots or media clips when they're looking for a vehicle or looking for help from the public to identify something. They've also had snippets of weather events on their cameras and other things than related to law enforcement. So those are more elevated cameras. They have wider angle lenses, and this type of system would also provide the option to place cameras for closer views that may be more geared towards law enforcement that allow us to see specifics about vehicles. Depending on the speed of the roadway, you may be able to freeze it and see the plate number. What's that? Yeah. Which one do I hit now? I'm too. There we go. The other system we looked at was more geared towards law enforcement. It's considered an automated license plate reader system. These types of cameras are strategically placed around the city that helps capture basically the license plates of cars coming in and out of your city. The company recommends placing them on the borders, and those mainly capture vehicles and their movement. One of the things I guess we're looking for from the council here is the direction of what type of system are you looking for. We are going to end up having to choose one. Are you looking for more of the overview style or something that's more geared directly towards law enforcement? Each system has its benefits, and I'm kind of looking for direction from you guys. So as we get closer, we'll be seeking that feedback from you. Project costs, this is the easiest one, automated license plate reader system. This type of camera system, it's basically an all-in-one system. Everything's housed in the camera. They have their own power source. They're powered solar or with solar energy, and it's $2,500 per camera per year. And the company that we researched, and it's one of the leaders in the country, you have to do a 5 camera order minimum, and then they're strategically placed. The other 2 systems we looked at were more of the traditional overview camera. And what we looked at were the individual camera costs, how is the data going to be transferred to and from the intersections then back to the storage facility or viewing facility, which is one of the hurdles because we don't have any type of data connectivity at any of our intersections, and each camera needs a data connection. And then what are the ongoing maintenance costs for these types of systems going to be? So what we found is the most cost-effective way to get data to different points in the city, intersections, or this can be expanded to parks, basically anywhere you have a direct line of sight. For one intersection, it's going to be just over $6,000. For 2 intersections, it's going to be just over 8. Once you have the initial infrastructure in, which is why the first intersection is so expensive, the cost greatly reduces because you have that base system in and you can expand it from there. Then the company, or both companies that we looked at, provided us kind of a conceptual design of the 2 intersections we initially looked at, which were 3rd and Racine and 3rd and De Pere. For 3rd and Racine, they'd place 4 cameras. 2 would be overview cameras that would capture basically half of the intersection, and then 2 narrow field of view cameras that would be more zoomed in for the traffic flow. That would include a 5-year software license and a 10-year camera warranty. This company that seems to be the front runner in our selection process, that's the longest warranty we could find. And if you do a 5-year software license package, it comes out to be about $100 a year per camera for software. This company has cloud-based storage, so we do not need to implement any hardware in the city other than the data transfer, which the IT department was very fond of. So the total cost for the data transfer infrastructure and the camera systems are listed here. For one intersection, it's almost 18,000, and if we would go to do 2 intersections right away, it would be just over 31, close to 32. With the amount that's budgeted in the CIP plan, which is 20, we should easily be able to do the first intersection and get that base infrastructure in. The second company that we looked at that had the in-house space storage, their quote was just over 17,000 also. However, the ongoing costs for the hardware we would have to install was not figured into that. In talking with the IT department, 5 to 7 years, we'd have to start looking at replacing hardware and or adding storage, which would only balloon the cost. That's why the cloud-based storage solution seemed to be the front runner.
So I guess the only things to add to that is the vendor that they're looking at as well is also the same vendor that the school district uses for their camera system. So some of our staff and officers have some experience with this company and their software. With that being said, I know we're kind of dressed in our Sunday best as respect to the council and the process. However, if there's questions or anything throughout our presentation, by all means, feel free to put your lights on or raise a question. Knowing that this is a big thing to a number of the council members, I guess we can kind of take a little pause here. If there are any questions that anyone has at this point, or do you just want us to keep plowing ahead?
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate it, Chief. I came to the commission and asked them to follow through on this, and it's been maybe a year. And I've told the personal story of where I've seen how important these cameras can be for a community. When you're in Appleton, pretty much any major intersection today has this camera system. I do like the option you mentioned where where it goes to a cloud base and that you don't have to necessarily do that in-house. So that would be my personal opinion. I appreciate the mayor kept it in the budget this time around, and I think at some point you're going to be, and the community is going to be very pleased that this has been installed. I told you about my nephew who was in a car accident. The person that hit my nephew blamed him for everything, but because of the camera, the police officer on the scene said, "I'm going to ask you not to say anything. It's very rare that we get a call, but they witnessed the whole thing, and you're at fault." And not only that, she was speeding, didn't have a license, and did not live in the country. So, and then there were other cases where I saw on the news where someone was stealing these trailers in Appleton. They couldn't find the person. All they had to do was look at the camera. watched the F-150 with the trailers attached, caught the guy. So I think, number one, I look at this more as a law enforcement tool. So that's my personal opinion, and I appreciate that you took the time to research this along with Public Works, and I hope the council keeps it in the budget and that this becomes a learning process also for us, and we can do other areas of the community as this program grows.
Thank you, Mayor. So Chief Steichen, how many crashes do we have so far this year?
Whatever we had up there, 300 and something. I'd have
300?
to go back.
So, as you showed us in the slides that everything is going down in numbers, which is what we want. And so I'm just curious now, everything is going down in numbers, and even with these apartment complexes, a lot of kids will be moving into them and don't walk, and that's what they're doing, or walk, and that's what they're doing downtown Appleton, is they can walk to wherever they want to go for what they want to go for. So, for the amount of money, what are we looking for, if you could tell me the reason exactly why these cameras are going in, when our numbers are showing that we're going down, and that's what we want?
Yep, great question. Because this is another one of those tools. Give you the example of our armed robbery on Appleton Road at the Quick Trip about a month and a half ago. We have identified, right, sort of, I don't know how far we can go down this road, but we have a very good idea who's responsible for that. And one of the reasons why we know who's responsible is because they were caught on Appleton's traffic cams after the incident. So it's one of those that, I hesitate to say this in an open meeting, but I will. And maybe this will come to bite us at some point, but you don't want to be the last man standing. There have been studies done in other communities in other parts of the country that if you are the last one to put the cameras in, people will know that pretty quickly, and they will be going into your community to commit crimes. So will we celebrate and will we let the world know that we put our first camera up on the first solve or the first crash that we're able to determine a hit and run or whatever? You're darn right we will. Because we want the world to know that we have this technology, and Menasha is in that direction, and hopefully pushing those crimes or problems to other communities that have not taken that vested interest. So I think you have to look at the long-term scope of it. We'll show you in just a few moments actually where we're sitting a little bit more for crime numbers, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But you're right. I think it's one of those that really keeps the community honest, and it's going to make sure that those that are thinking about doing bad things go someplace else, because this is a tool for us.
Thank you.
You
That
betcha.
was a great answer, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, cameras are great, and the investment is worth it. But my angle is, sooner or later, the cameras are going to be showing you evidence or giving you stuff that you won't have people doing desk time and analyzing things and doing other things. And not wasting time, but spending time trying to figure out what happened, when you can turn the camera on and find out what happened just like that. So my angle is, love the cameras. Do you foresee that in the future as lowering your number of employees that you do have then? A cost benefit that we can see, that why we're giving you the cameras, say, hey, because of this, we can eliminate one police officer from the city.
Sure.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, do I see that? No. For the mere fact that every other community, and I could say that before Fox Crossing is now adding an officer, and they're adding another one the year after or 6 months after. Every single community around here has added police officers over the last couple of years. We have not. We're the only community that has not added cops. So we have to be even more creative and more resourceful than what everyone else has, even though our population has increased. We have the same number of sworn officers right now today that they did back in 1982 or whatever it was. So we need to leverage technology and some of the other things that we're doing to stay ahead of it. People are expensive. It's the biggest part of our budget, as you folks know, every single year. And having these types of tools, and we're actually going to talk about how we're doing something a little bit different next year that we're going to try, which will further leverage technology and some other things to really kind of free up time for some of our officers on the road and some of the investigations that we're involved in. It's a great question. I would love to say that this type of thing would be kind of a cop in a can, if you will, that, you know, it could really reduce that. And then the one other thing too is that a lot of folks are, you know, they watch the CSIs and the TV shows and the things out there, and they're expecting this complete package to be handed when there's a crime and when you're prosecuting something. So to have all those little pieces of evidence that people are now looking for, and that certainly takes time to process and gather all of that. 25 years ago, if we had a couple of 35 millimeter pictures, that was about all we have. Now people are wanting, you know, DNA samples and pictures from every level and every angle, camera angles, cop cam stuff, statement form. There's so much more complexity to our investigations now than there was, you know, a decade or so ago. So, yes, I agree with you. I'd love to say that it would be able to save some labor dollars, but I'm not seeing where that would be the case.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, help me understand what a plate reader does, and does it give us information in real time? Someone comes into our community, we have it at our borders. Does it tell us that the car is stolen or there's a felon driving that car, possibly? I mean, that it's registered to?
Sure. Well, actually, man, I know, but hey, he's done a lot of research here. Let's let him take this one.
So those types of systems are very customizable. You can set them to give you whatever information you want. Most of them are, like you said, you can enter the stolen vehicle information and you would get an alert when that camera captures them. You can enter license plates of vehicles that you're looking for. If someone's wanted for a significant crime, you can enter those into they're called hot lists. The good thing about those systems too is that they save those and you can go back and search them. So if you develop a suspect vehicle in a crime or an investigation, you can search the database and see, did they come into your city? Did they leave? What was their route of travel if you have a couple of them? And in some of the more significant investigations, those are important pieces of the puzzle to find out where they went, what time it was, and where did they go. So yes, you can customize them to kind of to fit your needs.
The one thing I will add to that, though, too, is Matt's talking about that. There's also the privacy concern side of it. So policies, the model policies that are out there and the policy that we would utilize, should we have an ALPR type of system or one that is capturing that type of data, is that it can only be accessed for true criminal purposes. I can't do that to see if my wife was driving through town at a certain time to go hook up with someone, or looking to see what alderman was at a bar after bar close, or, you know, whatever. That would be strictly forbidden by that. It can truly only be used for an investigative purpose, and most of those programs have an audit track type of trail, so we would know if an officer is spying on their neighbor, or their wife or boyfriend or whomever.
I guess I found out how much technology there is in this. I didn't realize it, but somehow I hit something that told me where I took pictures, if it was High Cliff State Park or Jefferson Park, Menasha. And Lieutenant Lentz called me one day, and somebody had reported that I was taking a couple of pictures by the swimming pool. And myself and Alderman Rapella have kind of championed the cause of the swimming pool. And back in my early days, I was working at the Y in Neenah, and I witnessed almost drowning of a father on father-son night. So once you see someone very blue, it really has, and the lifeguards weren't doing their job. They were sitting on the floor. They weren't up in their chairs. So if lifeguards aren't up in their chair, it really bothers me.
Can we stay on topic here, Alderman Taylor? We're not talking about the pool tonight.
Pardon me?
We're not talking about the pool tonight. Can we stay on the police department, please?
Oh, I'm talking about technology with cameras here, Mayor. Okay, and Lieutenant Lenz called me, and this is what I'm talking about, how unique technology is. And I embraced this technology 4 or 5 years ago. I was talking about this on this council, and I'm glad we're starting to crack the door on this type of technology. And anything we can do for our department is through technology, is the bright new path. And I come from a family of police officers in Chicago, and I used to be able to get information ahead of time and find out what the new trends are, but my uncles have since passed away, and so I've kind of lost that connection with that. But what would be the third intersection you think you would do after these two?
Well, based on our accident numbers and traffic flow, we'd really love to do Midway and Appleton Road. However, that presents a unique challenge because we do not own those traffic signals. Those are run by the state. So in conversations with Appleton, they have had success in getting agreements to put their infrastructure on the state of Wisconsin poles and whatnot. So if we get to that point, we would need to investigate that and find out the logistics on how to get that to work. But that would probably be a third intersection.
I appreciate that our utilities have cameras throughout the community. City of Neenah has cameras in all their park systems. I appreciate that. Every day we're tracked and videotaped or on camera somewhere, and that's a society we live in. And I feel that if you're an upstanding citizen, you shouldn't have to worry about that at this time. And it's the bad people that we want to make sure that we continue. Your policing efforts have been tremendous in the city. Your statistics show that, and we can bring you new tools to help improve that. I am all for it. Thank you for the presentation on the cameras.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a few questions because I came in right in the middle of that. Were you proposing to install these at one intersection this year or two?
So based on kind of the preliminary numbers that were placed in the CIP budget, that would allow us to do one. We wouldn't use all of the funds budgeted, but it's not enough to do two.
Okay, and then building off of what Alderman Taylor asked, have we considered plans for developing the network, building that out once that's established, like what intersections might come next and what criteria will be used to determine that?
Some, yes. Because we're limited with the data transmission, if we start at 3rd and Racine, the easiest and most cost-effective way is to branch off from that intersection with the point-to-point wireless system. That's why we selected 3rd and De Pere Street as a second option. If we go to Midway and Appleton Road, we would need to invest in some more infrastructure to get the data up that far north in the city. The easiest location to branch off of is 3rd and Racine because you can go down 3rd Street both directions. You can go up Racine Street, and then you can go down Racine Street and get to the downtown, what I would consider downtown traffic signals at Main and Taco, and work south from there. So as far as a specific plan, once we get past the first three, we haven't really reached that yet, not knowing how long and how far that would be.
Do you know whether 3rd and Racine is the best place to start building out that network? The physical location for something to collect that data based on the wireless transmission?
Yes.
Okay.
In order to reach the majority of the intersections, 3rd and Racine is the best just because of the line of sight to all of the other intersections. If we are looking at doing other areas like parks or other locations that aren't streets, we would have to just find other line of sight options. These systems are very customizable and very flexible. So if we're looking at other areas, we would just have to sit down and plan and then have these locations identified by the company as to where they can direct their signal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, just a clarification. How much, and I've got a couple different numbers written down. How much was it for one camera? 17,000 or 6,000? I don't know why I have the various numbers, but
So 17,000 is the total cost to implement the program at Third and Racine. That includes the data transfer costs and the camera cost and installation and training for staff.
got it, Matt. And then 31 is for the total cost of two of them, Third and Racine and Third and De Pere, correct?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you very much.
One quick follow-up. Could we work off of the utility platform? Are they on, I mean, is that something that we could connect to, or is it, I know we have fiber in the city, and
We researched fiber. That cost is astronomical. There's a lot of fiber in the city, but we still have to get it from where it is in the city to the intersections. I reached out to the Menasha utilities. Their costs were fairly high. We reached out to a couple other companies that recently laid a lot of fiber in the city, and they would be willing to run the fiber to the intersections for free, but then because they're a private company, you have to pay monthly costs for having their equipment there to get the data. And the cheapest we found was $100 per month per intersection. And we have about, if I added them up correctly, about 11 intersections we would maybe eventually look at putting them there. That'd be $1,100 per month, or $11,000 per month, just for data. So that's why we lean towards the point-to-point wireless, which relies on our internet capabilities within the city already.
so with the utility, what network they have, that would help us connect into that or anything? Okay.
No, they don't have anything at the intersections that would help us.
All right, thank you.
One of our biggest accomplishments this year was to launch our wellness program. This time last year, we came to you with this idea as a result of the Command College Management Program that I had attended as my individual project. And with your support, very excitedly, our team launched the program this year, and we focused, if you remember, on financial, emotional, and physical health. Through discussions with all personnel at the department and what they were looking for, we were able to offer financial. Everyone stresses about money, doesn't matter what age or how many years you've been in the job. So if we can identify what those stressors are, and we have some experts in the department, so they were able to offer presentations, some one-on-ones, and we have many goals for next year as well. Emotional health was a very interesting topic that we continued working on. We started this in 2020 and continued into 2021 with the Officer Resiliency Training. It's a program, it's a 12-step program that was created by the FBI that was put on through our in-service training, and it's ongoing. So we don't plan on stopping. And then trauma. Trauma is a topic that we helped everyone at the department. Again, this was open to all personnel. What is trauma? How does it affect you? What are you able to recognize, and how to cope? Our officers and our front desk staff, who now have to type all the reports, go on a lot of interesting calls. Trauma for me is going to be different than trauma for Lieutenant Schultz or whoever. So just really through education and training, helping everyone with emotional health. And again, we have goals that we'll talk about later for next year. So thank you for your support of this program. It has been very well received, and from the survey that we just administered, found that what people are looking for next. They're excited for the first year and really want to hear what we're going to offer next year.
So right on the last point here on the physical health, I'll just touch base on some of the things that we accomplished with what we had received last year in the budget. And part of that was the cardio room, which was the old CRT, when we used to have a CRT or SWAT team, and that disbanded. That room kind of became a dumping point and a room that was not used. We were able to clear out that room, move some equipment, and create a bigger space for people to do some cardio activities within that room. That room is very widely used now by everybody in the department. We also partnered with TNT Fitness, and they created what they call the DRIP program. And it's a 12-week campaign where they kind of touch base and sent out emails to everybody within the department. It ranged from fitness tip of the day, nutrition tip of the day, different workouts, and they also offered some services within TNT through that DRIP campaign. It's something that we hope to continue a partnership with them, considering they're also local and in town as well. The last thing that we focused on with physical health was nutrition. It was within the TNT as well, but we also had a nutritionist come in, or a cook, you could say, and she, well, virtually because of COVID, she had a couple different snack ideas and meal ideas. We were able to put her videos onto our briefing program, which is Virtual Academy, and people were able to revert back to those and watch those anytime that they chose for healthy eating tips throughout the year.
So that leads us to the next point of achieving full staffing. 25, almost 26 years being here, I can only remember about 6 months that we've had all of our slots filled. So this year we didn't completely reap the benefit of it because we were down on a person or two in the beginning of the year, and we had a couple of people out on injuries and maternity leave for this year. But boy, we're poised to a really neat 2022. It's real expensive to hire cops. It's real expensive to train cops. And the group that we have right now is just a phenomenal, talented group of young folks that we've been able to bring in. And the things that you just saw with the wellness program, those are what makes the Menasha Police Department a little bit different than other places. Other people are doing wellness programs, but I don't know they're doing to the extent that we are. And I'm truly hoping that that's what's resonating with our folks, that they're willing to make this a long-term career for them, staying here. We know that people are bouncing around a lot to different departments these days, so it's really kind of neat to have all the people that we have here, and we can go into next year being fully staffed.
And we're kind of in a waiting pattern on this. So last year, we discussed how we wanted to implement a new body camera program based on our aging technology. So as part of that process, we applied for 2 grants. Both grants would be a 1-to-1 match, so they would reduce the cost of the system about in half. One of them allowed us to apply for upgraded storage, which is very expensive, so we included that. And the other one was just for the body camera hardware. Given the current state of the pandemic, the process in reviewing those applications and notifying the winners has been postponed till the end of the year. So we're hoping by the end of this year we will know whether or not we received one of them.
So the only thing to add to that is the council did allocate approximately $50,000 to this lot for this year. We could have bought them. But obviously, that big of an expenditure and having these opportunities to offset the cost, again, this is where our staff and Matt really took the ball on this one to make sure that we could do this in the most economical way possible. So again, I want you to know that we're sensitive to the amount of money that it costs to run a police department, and we're always looking for those opportunities to stretch every dollar and every penny.
Another item we recognized at the PD is training. We used to send all of our officers to training outside of the department, but with many experienced, skilled trainers that we have at the department, we never really hosted in-service at the department until 2020. And since then, the amount of training we've been able to do in-house to cover all of our staff, reduce the cost of training, and the material that we covered has been wonderful. So again, our goal is to host 2 in-service trainings per year, spring and fall, and we have been meeting that and covering so many more topics that we have never done in the past. So great accomplishment.
Been some discussion about the men's locker room. Yes, we finally got the shower room and the bathroom completed. Had hats off to Thad and Brian and Josh and his staff. I'd love to say the project went off without a hitch, but I wouldn't be truthful if I said that. But Thad put in an inordinate amount of extra time to make sure that it was done right for both us and the fire department. So he's not here tonight, but just a big thank you to him and the extra work that he did with it. So these are the pictures we gave you last year. We had the gang shower, a lot of issues with it, but whatever. That's what we got now. So it looks much better. Isn't anything over the top, but it is certainly much, much better than what it was in the past. Bathroom, same type of tile and, issues and whatnot. It's kind of what that looked like. Now we're down to just one urinal, one stall, but it, again, is a much better facility. And the sinks, that's what the sinks looked like before. The sinks are actually moved to outside of where the room is now because we had to make things ADA compliant because of the upwork. And still have some finishing work to do in that area. But again, thank you, and I know our folks are really excited about the upgrades to the facility. Next thing we would have then is the roof on the public safety building. I guess I could have crawled up there and taken some pictures for you, but it's a new roof. The good news is we no longer have to put buckets underneath certain areas of the police department during big rainstorms. So huge upgrade to that, and a lot of time saving then for Brian and Josh when we've had the leak issues. Well overdue, but glad that it's gone there.
We've transitioned our daily briefing to Virtual Academy. We had a previous program that worked okay, but for cost-saving measures, we switched to Virtual Academy, where we are now gaining more. We still hold our briefing through Virtual Academy, but it also offers unlimited, I don't remember how many programs are offered, but our officers can use this program for online training, which was wonderful through COVID. We have a 24 hours of training that's mandatory. Our officers, actually all staff, are able to attend all these courses through Virtual Academy. So for the same cost, we have free training, briefing, and it also holds all of our wellness program materials. So 3 programs all in one, all for the same cost. And that, again, great accomplishment to switch over.
We were fortunate and grateful to receive a funding opportunity through Capital Credit Union where we purchased a TrueNarc Narcotics Analyzer. What makes this device so special is the fact that it tests for over 500 substances, and in most cases with no direct contact by the officer needing to test the actual substance itself. So it's the other features is it's extremely reliable, and it presents real-time data in terms of what the substance is that the officers are testing. We've seen a lot of success in using the device on the road, and 2 notable cases where we've used the device recently was we had a white powdery substance where an officer at first sight believed that it was heroin or cocaine, and upon using the TrueNarc Analyzer, they determined that it was actually baking soda. So we didn't need to obviously proceed with an arrest in that circumstance. The other example was we had, Lieutenant Nelson actually had a vehicle where he was assisting an agency, and there was some white crystallized substance on the floorboard of a car in the carpeting. And obviously that presents some challenges from traditional type testing where we have to try to pick those pieces up and put them into a capsulized thing to test what it is. Lieutenant Nelson, with the use of the TrueNarc, was able to put it directly on the carpeting, test what it was, and it identified as methamphetamine. So it's extremely reliable, and we're grateful to have that.
And obviously, at the price tag of $30,000, it's nothing that we would have been getting anytime in the near future. So this is the device for 30 grand. It's kind of, you want to almost hold it with 2 hands. It's just so you don't do anything to it. But we did bring it along, and if you want to take a look at it a little bit further in between breaks between the sessions, we'll be more than happy to show you a little bit further about it. So.
Before we go on to the next slide, I went through a bunch of time, but the number 1 accomplishment is great, the fully staffed. But then now I'm going to look at your overtime budget for what you have. So for fully staffed, we still need $200,000 in overtime. I mean, explain what that encompasses, and is there any reason why that should not go down based on a fully staffed police force?
Yeah, if you actually, so this year will come in probably about $20,000 under budget on our overtime. And we're seeing that as a direct tie to being in a better staff position. Could we reduce overtime? You could. However, if you look historically back at our last couple of budgets, we've left it flat. So we have not been building in the pay increases to the overtime budget as to keep pace with what the wages are. So in essence, our overtime budget is buying less dollars or hours or time with the officers going forward. There's certain overtime that is obviously unavoidable, court time and, staying over for a crime or finishing a report. In addition, one of the things that, because of the way that finance has us budgeting, or it's the appropriate accounting way to do it, is you would know you have a revenue with an offsetting expenditure. So when we look at the traffic grant, for example, if we have $30,000 in that, we build that money into the overtime, and that money's increased over the years. However, we haven't always increased the overtime budget for that. So we have an offsetting revenue to what we're spending on the other side of it. There's also been opioid grants and heroin grants and methamphetamine grants that is also offsetting our overtime for our MEG unit officer. The school district is also reimbursing us for overtime for our SROs. So the true cost to the city of Menasha is not $200,000 in our overtime. It's closer in the realm, and it varies, and I'd have to check with Jennifer exactly, but it's, for this year, it'll probably be more like 150-ish. So while you're still budgeting that side of it, you're actually having some revenues that are offsetting the cost of the overtime.
Okay, I'm just, looking to reduce the levy here
Yeah,
for
I
taxpayers and
understand.
stuff. And,
No,
you
completely.
don't got many items to really hit, but I just felt, maybe there's some fat there that maybe we can squeak a little bit of money out of. But thank you for the explanation.
The one thing I will say, though, is because it's been decades since we've been fully staffed, one of the things that we will be keeping a closer eye on for this year is to see what impact, presume that we will maintain full staffing through the year, what impact that will have on the overtime. It's kind of a crystal ballish sort of thing. And the other thing that I'm not sure if it'll come to fruition, but the union is also entertaining different schedule type of options as well to potentially look at a side letter and do that. If that's the case, that could potentially have an impact on overtime as well. So it's certainly something that's a work in progress, and we'll continue to monitor it and see if in subsequent years it's something we could reduce.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, the wages just right below where Ted was, 521,1008. Wages, temp help, in 2020 it was like $9,200, and then this year we should have 3,200 or 32,000, and then you've got budgeted 27. Why the increase from 9 to 32?
Which item are you looking at?
The sixth one down, wages and temp help. 1008, yeah. Page 49.
Yep, no, I have it here. I guess I'm,
Page 49, the sixth one down.
yep. So our budget amount is 27,378 for this year, and I believe it's 27,924 for next year. I'm not I'm seeing it's in,
About the 9,000 that was spent in 20.
Yes.
oh, because, well, that's something that finance ended up changing through the year.
Oh,
So before, all of our non-sworn folks were included in that top account under the wages. And for a variety of reasons, they broke that out then and ended up putting it in. So anyone that isn't so the very part-time people. So we have a couple part-time employees historically, and then we have ones that are relief comptex is primarily where that comes in. The relief comptex work very varied hours. When we have a vacancy in the comptech desk, we have a pool of those folks that'll come in and work that time, so we don't have to pay overtime to the full-time folks. So those people have since been branched out of that budget line item, and they have their own separate one.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
You betcha.
Saw the little difference there in money, so thank you very much.
No problem. So we talked about the True Narc. Moving on, we've had a couple conversations about crime stats, and there's been some discussion on this. And I know the lines are a little bit small. Hopefully people can see this. One of the things that really bothers me in my position and what I've heard in the community from time to time is just that Menasha has these issues. And Menasha is this high crime area, and you hear that from realtors sometimes, and you hear it from other folks. I really can't use the appropriate language that I would really like to say about those things. But I guess the best word to say that it's untrue. And this is a Tenure Stats of UCR numbers, so this is actually what's reported to the federal government. Now, I know it's kind of a hodgepodge of things on there, but if you'll see, for example, Nina's that red line, and Nina is certainly seeing an increase in violent crime over the last 10 years. We are the blue line, and we kind of go up and down a little bit, but you can see we're on a downward trajectory. We all kind of went up in 2019. We know that there was a spike, and you see pretty much all the lines were up there except Kaukauna. But our line has now dropped down, and for 2021, I guarantee you that that line is going to continue that trajectory. The next one here is property crime. Grand Chute's that top line, and obviously with how much commercial they have there, they just have all kinds of retail theft and those types of calls there. But again, if you make out Menasha on this one, this is our property crime, and the numbers on the left are how many crimes per 1,000 people, so 20 crimes per 1,000 people. We were at approximately 22 in 2010, and we're now down to just over 10 per 1,000 people. We are now lower than Appleton, we are lower than Oshkosh, we are lower than Grand Chute, and where you can see Nina's been kind of bouncing around, we're tied or we will be lower than Nina. So I bring this to you again for a variety of reasons. I will never take credit, nor should I necessarily take blame for our crime numbers. This is a group effort. This is our community. But this is also things that we've come to you, community development's come to you, other departments have come to you that have an impact on it. I am convinced that the Boys and Girls Club being here has helped. I'm convinced that the Elementary Liaison Program has helped. The aggressive stance that the city has taken to tearing down buildings that should be torn down and have been dilapidated and have a group of people living in there that shouldn't be, has helped. I can show you, and I could point out a couple properties, for example, that we had theft complaints from around the neighborhood, damage to vehicle complaints from around the neighborhood. That house is gone. I can't tell you the last time we've been on that street. So again, it's a group effort. I appreciate all the support that you have given the police department as well as the other departments. But gosh darn it, this is a good community, and we are really trending in a great direction, and we just hope to continue that going forward. So what are we going to do next year? Well, we use that LEAD model. So listen, explain, equity, and dignity. That's what we do every single time, every interaction that we try to have with folks. That's our standard, that's our goal, that's our motto, and it works. It gets people to really trust us. When, again, there were issues and problems and protests and things going on, people chose not to come here. There were a couple that were tried to have a protest here, and they said, no, we're going to go someplace else. We really don't have a problem with the city of Menasha or the police department. Next one, leader team.
Our goal next year is to train with the leader team. Last year, attending the Command College Management training, our group project was to partner with the leader team. Leader stands for the Law Enforcement Death Response Team. They're a team of volunteers that respond statewide to assist with officer-involved deaths. We partnered with them, created their website, did a fundraiser, and created resources and educational videos that every department in the state can share with their staff to prepare for the worst day of our life. We've identified and recognized that we train for everything else, and we have a plan, but we've never coordinated that plan from beginning to end, and that is our goal for 2022.
So I think we covered the traffic system pretty well, so we'll just kind of go along from that one. Continue our employee development program. So obviously this presentation is a little bit different. Last year we had some of our folks talking. I don't have a whole many more years left of doing these budget presentations, so that's why we have some of our very talented up-and-coming folks here. We have a number of folks that certainly could take over for me if it need be tomorrow. But through the program that Nick Thorne told you about, as well as other training opportunities, we're going to continue making sure that we're developing my replacement and Angie's replacement, and even the people underneath. We have a young group, and we want to make sure that we continue kind of molding them in the direction that we feel has been a fairly successful police department.
As Chief mentioned, we are fully staffed. However, I don't want to slow down on fine-tuning our hiring process. Coincidentally, today, I was at Fox Valley Tech discussing with many other agencies and education professionals about how can we recruit, how are we going to find those next officers. Felt pretty good. The only one in the room that says, hey, we're fully staffed, where everyone else is 7 to 9 officers short. So we want to retain our employees, but also work on fine-tuning our hiring process backgrounds so that we get the best candidate in a timely manner. And there are a few programs out there that will help with that. So we have improved our process already, and this is just the next step of that, and we can move forward and maintain full staffing.
No, I did not.
The next thing we're going to be doing is transitioning to the Taser 7. So our current Taser platform is not going to be managed by Axon, who runs Taser. They're not going to be replacing parts or anything, so it's kind of a dead product. What we did, though, is we purchased many items so that we can backfill that, so that we can make these last for several years, the ones that we currently have. But going forward, we're going to transition to these Taser 7s. There is obviously cost added to these. We've gone through a lot of numbers. I do have to give some credit to Officer Hernke. He has done a lot of work with this and trying to bring this down to a reasonable cost, and working with the chief so that we can transition to this technology that unfortunately we're going to have to go to and don't really have a choice. So our hands are kind of tied with that. But that's something that right away next year we're going to be going to the Taser 7.
Taser 7 question. That falls in the tools and equipment budget, right? That's why I see that going up, is because of the tasers and stuff. I haven't been tased, but how does that work? Once you tase someone, you know, I saw it on some show, a wire comes out and zaps you or something. Does that get thrown away then? Then you need more supplies, you can't reuse it? Is that the equipment with, how's it, you know, explain to us and the people how the tasers are charged and reused?
Yeah, so the tasers have a cartridge. So they have a battery. The battery will last for lots and lots of deployments and lots of time. The big transition now is they're going to a battery that is rechargeable. So the battery we currently have, once it's done. We get rid of it. So the new Taser battery is rechargeable. Obviously, so when you shoot it, there's a cartridge at the end of it. That cartridge is expelled. You can no longer use that cartridge. The interesting thing with Taser 7 is that there's actually 2 cartridges on a single Taser now. So you could theoretically shoot that twice. And if you do shoot it twice, obviously there's 2 cartridges you have to replace. So the cartridge replacement is also built into how we're budgeting this out as well.
Mike, do we have stats on how often we use tasers? Or is it more used now than it was years ago, or is it declining?
I think we've had
the last few years, and looking at the data, I want to say we've probably utilized the Taser 2 to 3 times a year. I'd have to go back and look at the data to be sure. Does not look like the trend is going up in using tasers on people this year. I believe we've used it once so far this year. When we use it, definitely is a valuable tool. It's saved lives and saved officers' injuries and suspect from injuries. So it's a very valuable tool. And like my partner said, the technology is changing through the company that we purchased these through. And it's just expanding beyond what we have right now.
So just to add to it a little bit further, it's one of those things now that has become a staple. Really, the only other thing that's kind of on that same level of force for us in Wisconsin is pepper spray. Pepper spray is obviously a lot cheaper, but it's not as effective. The thing that works with the taser is that they refer to as something called neuromuscular incapacitation. When the person's under the influence of the taser device itself, the person locks up. They have an inability to then fight, which allows officers to go into that window of opportunity to actually take them into custody. So the studies that we've had, and we were actually one of the first departments in the Fox Valley to actually get the tasers years ago, actually found that it would reduce injuries to both the subjects themselves and the officers. So it's safer on both sides of the account. The other phenomena that we have now is something called excited delirium. And because of the drug use, you'll have people that will, in essence, be out of their mind. And because those folks don't feel pain, pepper spray is a pain compliance device. If we would use a baton, it's a pain compliance device. Taser, yes, there is a pain component to the electricity, but when you have that neuromuscular incapacitation, the person's unable to then fight through that. If the person is allowed to continue to fight and the officers are fighting with that person for a long period of time, that's where the person gets susceptible to overheating and basically dying. We just recently actually had an individual that was at the hospital, long story, but naked, so on and so forth, and was exhibiting those signs and symptoms. So that was our one taser deployment this year so far. By being able to take him into custody, otherwise it would have been a heck of a battle for those that were there, had we not had the device. So it's a little more complicated. So while the usages really don't tell the full story, plus there's folks that as soon as you just bring it out or reference it, that's one of the things we don't record. People don't like electricity. It'll be, okay, I don't want that. And you'll see that compliance, and people will give up for that too.
With the number of new employees that we have, we've identified the need to do some more crime scene response and crime scene processing training with them. Quarterly, currently we have our evidence technicians and our investigators who have attended more advanced type training do certain trainings to retain those skills. So next year we've identified that we're going to be using those people to assist in training some of our patrol folks, because we know the importance of how things can go right from the get-go from the response, and the importance of how they do certain things when they get on scene.
So in addition to the traffic camera program and body camera stuff, we'll also be doing a squad car tire test. Currently, we deploy 2 different styles of tires throughout the year. We have a summer set and a winter set, given our climate. We'd love to just be able to leave the winter tires on the car all year round. However, the compounds that those tires are currently made of, when the temperatures are warmer, the compounds on the tire don't keep the tires as firm and they wear out faster. So the police tire market has, I guess, improved over the last year, and there have been a couple manufacturers that have now come out with tires that have the winter performance, but you're allowed to leave them on all year round, and you can drive them in the summer without them wearing out. So we have a set already on. We're testing those out to see if that will save us all the labor costs of switching the tires out twice a year. Based on what we've seen so far and what other departments have reported to the manufacturers, we're optimistic that this will be another cost-saving measure for the fleet.
We have many, many goals for wellness for next year, both what our wellness team has identified, but then also from what all personnel has expressed to us. A few things that we are looking to do is have 12 different topics for the upcoming calendar year, themed with the season, team building exercises, as well as challenges. Recently learned that the city of Menasha is already a member of the Wellness Council of America, so looking to speak with our HR department to see what we could also share with our department as well. We are on the waiting list for Wheels for Heroes for more financial health. Already have other people set up to do more presentations for the financial aspect. Also looking to apply for a grant that will take care of 75% of the cost for annual visits to meet with a psychologist, and then would definitely lower our cost as well for our budget. And then continue with the officer resiliency training. It's a 12-step program, so we need to continue to work our way through. That is free, and we are partnered with the Center for Suicide Awareness. There's multiple instructors and therapists there that not only offer some free training in-house at our department, but counseling and therapy services for officers, and we've had officers reach out for that as well. So that's been wonderful to open that door for them. He is gonna.
I do. This will go back to Matt. So, excuse me. So, going back to the squad car tire test, I'm going to mention that with the vehicle repair. Excuse me, boy. Does each officer, patrol officer, they have their own car that they drive every day?
They don't have their own, they're assigned one. They use the same one every day, but each officer doesn't have their own.
Yeah, that's what I meant. How big is your fleet? What do you have?
So we have 7 Mark squad cars. The SROs each have their own because they need to get around. And then we have 2 investigative vehicles and 3 unmarked. Our fleet is total of 20.
Total of 20 squads? Okay. Then that may change. my
And
next
the tire
question.
test is only for the marked patrol vehicles. So it's only for the squad cars that are used every day on patrol is what these tires are for, not the whole
Yeah.
fleet.
Yeah. So I just want to go down and just mention, what are we repairing every year that costs $67,000? I mean, are we changing out trannies and engines on every vehicle every year?
No, we do not. So that budget, in addition to the repair, that also includes a lot of the new equipment that we need to purchase for new vehicles. Because of the length of time we keep them, often when they're rotated out, because the models change, the interiors change, some of that equipment is not transferable. So we need to basically purchase new stuff. So that's not only repair, that it also includes new equipment.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Did you say 20 or 22? Because your report says 22.
'22 might be accurate. I'd have to count them in my head. 20 to 22. 22 is probably correct. If you add the crime scene unit and the 6-wheel Ranger that's used on special events,
Okay.
yeah,
Says 22.
then that's probably the accurate number.
Glad to help. So just wrapping up our last 2 things with goals for next year. With being fully staffed and kind of going to what Alderman Grady had kind of alluded to before and how things are getting much more complicated, I very well could make a very strong argument for adding at least 1 more police officer. However, because of the way that our crime has changed, we've been able to shift and we do not have coverages late at night for as long as we used to have historically. So by being able to shift things around a little bit, what we're doing next year is we're going to try to move one of those positions to a crime analyst position. So they'd be working kind of as a crime analyst as well as kind of helping out in investigations. Officer Denton Heidemann is the one who's going to be taking over in that spot. This guy is phenomenal. So I can't tell you how many things that he has solved and learned and done just by investigating these things. And you really have to have a knack and the training to be able to do it because it gets complicated, and if you don't do it right, you'll get yourself jammed up in court. So we're going to give that a whirl for next year's. We're doing some of these other things, excited about it, and know that's not an actual representation of him or the workstation that he will have next year. No, I think we're getting him a little laptop. That's about it. And then the last piece, which is probably the most important thing that we're doing next year, is really community engagement. One of the things that we learned through COVID, and we had to be reactionary, we went to calling people instead of stopping by their houses on certain things. A lot of special events were canceled, opportunities where we were able to interact just kind of fell apart. We've changed, Shelby Patterson is going to be moving into the community liaison role. She has some just incredible ideas and just an enthusiasm that's hard to bottle. So we're really looking forward to her being out there and really kind of celebrating. We know that the police department's highly visible. Every police department is. And you can do that in a positive way or a negative way, in my opinion. And historically, we've always been able to do that in a very positive way. COVID screwed things up, and I think this is a real good opportunity for us to kind of come up on top and celebrate those awesome things that are being done in the community. We've had a number of conversations with Director Sackett in the Parks Department. She's just got some phenomenal ideas on how we can partner together and just move things to a whole new level in 2022. So really excited about that change and what we're going to do next year. So I know we started dabbling into some of the things about the budget for this year. Obviously, salaries are under budget this year, and that's because we hired a few folks that were cheaper than the ones that they replaced, as well as we did have some vacancies in the beginning of the year that were filled in the middle of the year. But like we said, currently, we're good to go. Overtime will be under budget. Health insurance will be under budget, again, because people's choices were a little different. And then FICA retirement, the other roll-ups are cheaper when you save the money on the 70 grand that you weren't paying out. Yeah. The auxiliary unit, we've had real struggles with them. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but they're going to be under budget. CSO program is a little bit over budget, but that's because the CSOs ended up having to jump in and work some of the events that the auxiliary traditionally would have. Crossing guards, because the schools were closed in the first part of the year, that'll be under budget. Because the jails weren't taking people on warrants because of COVID for the first half of the year, we're going to be under budget there. And animals, we just continue to save money there, and you've seen, I'm sure, in the book that we're recommending cutting that budget again for next year. One of the things that came up in a meeting, I don't know, two meetings back, is... Last night. Well, last night it came up too? Okay, well, in my crystal ball... So one of the things that I think you want to know about then is parking tickets and about how many are we writing. And so here's kind of the recap. We reached out to our partners around to see are we on target. And the long story short of it is, yeah, for the winter parking overnight, we seem to be in line with others. Overnight parking for the summertime, we're probably $5 short. Same thing with the other parking. Everyone is more expensive than us except for Fox Crossing for their other parts of tickets. So that's, 2-hour parking, parking too close to a fire or a driveway in a crosswalk, those kinds of things. So what does that really mean for us is if we would increase the summer from $10 to $15, it would be about $5,500 a year. If we would go to all the $10 tickets that we just referred to $15, you're looking about $3,000. We write approximately 900 winter overnight parking tickets a year, about 1,100 summers, and 600 of the others. So that's kind of where that falls. I see Alderman Sevenick has his light on, if there's a question that we can answer for him.
Yeah, so last night in the IT budget, we noticed that the cost for the annual software was quite high, and I thought, boy, are we issuing that many tickets even, just to pay for the software, because I know maybe 2 years ago, was it, when we purchased the new system that we're using? 4 already? Boy, time flies. Seems like it was only 2, but so that's the only reason we were questioning that, because we looked at that software cost for each year, and I'm thinking, wow, we got to issue a lot of tickets just to pay for that every year. So are we doing that? And I think Jennifer did give us an answer on the numbers and stuff, so.
Yeah, so it looks like our share for next year is about $7,600 for the software. And mind you, the software isn't just the software for writing the parking tickets, it's also the management system, as well as the interface for taking the payments. The majority of our parking tickets are now paid online. So that runs the whole interface for that and automatically uploads into the system to show. Plus then there's also the side of it that if a person doesn't pay their parking ticket, where their plate can then be referred to DOT for a suspension, There's a little hands-on process, but it assists in generating those lists to be able to be sent to DOT. So we're looking at somewhere between $45,000 to $55,000 a year we bring in on the parking program, and we're spending about 7 to 8.
Thank you. Chief, I had some questions down here. So are you collecting, I guess part of it was answered, are you collecting the money that you're assessing into violations? How do you go about, what happens to somebody who doesn't pay their parking ticket or their violation?
It goes up after a couple of days, and then it goes up again, and then it goes up again. Then they get a notice in the mail saying you still haven't paid. If you don't pay, then you will be suspended. And then, does anyone know offhand, Beth, how long until the plate gets sent? So approximately 30 days after is when it gets then sent to DOT for
Fire
suspension.
pits.
I'm sorry?
I know, fire pits. We drive around, we see fire pits. How many licenses do we have for fire pits?
I have no idea. That's handled by fire.
That's not you guys.
No, they don't let us touch fire. They get really mad if we do anything with a fire.
Okay. You can bring brats or something, but okay. All right.
Oh, no, donuts don't work on a fire pit very well,
No,
so
they
it just
don't.
wouldn't work for us. Is
Got it. All right, thank you.
that it? Okay. All right, so what are we looking at for next year? What's included in the budget is an extra $1 per hour on the wages side of it for the evidence custodian position. I hate to ever have, well, the short version of it is the evidence custodian person that we have is part-time evidence custodian and part-time ComTech. So she shares both roles and responsibilities. Her roles and responsibilities on the evidence custodial is substantial. She has access to the drugs, the guns, the weapons, and everything else that comes in there. And frankly, she is one talented individual. She actually sits on the state board for other similar people in her position, and she has done just absolutely a phenomenal job. So when she's working ComTech, she has one wage, and then when she's working the other, this would keep her very competitive. She has had job offers from Appleton, Fond du Lac, and a couple other departments to leave us and to go to them where she would have made more money. And she has continued to stay with us. We love her. She loves us. She's just a phenomenal person, so we would really like to reward that. The other one, which actually should be under salaries 1002, is we have a thing with the grids that doesn't line up exactly right. So what I was recommending is that Angie's position would get an annual increase of $1,000 from where she's sitting at in the grid. Because of the way the system works out, we have people that make more than she does, a number of the folks in the department, and this is just trying to equate that out a little bit closer, doing a comparable thing. I know the city attorney / HR director was looking at different options on trying to upgrade and change the grid system and bring something to you, but it certainly isn't going to be for this budget. So that's what's included at least, and like you said, that should be 1002. The rest of the 1002 stuff is the contractually hourly rates. Overtime, like we talked about, despite the pay increases, we're going to see 0 there. Health insurance is what has been determined by finance based upon what people's elections are right now. Dental, we talked about that in the admin meeting. I'll defer to Alderman Grady. I think he has a question.
My question was more as to tell the group and tell us people watching the contract that was signed and for how many years does that go out?
Yeah, it's a
You did a
4-year.
really good job, I thought.
No, you helped. We appreciate it. And trust me, I don't want to have to go through another one of those for a while. But actually, next year, the pay increase for the non-sworn folks is only 1% raise. A number of them will see a larger increase just because they're moving into the next step. And that's one of the reasons why we designed it only a 1% for them for next year, where the rest of the non-rep folks in the city is listed as a 2% increase. But it is a 4-year budget and it goes through the end of 2024. Retirement, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to health insurance.
Yeah.
When you did your budget, did you base it on the new updated figures? Because we just adopted.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
based upon the,
Well, actually, it only went through administration. It'll come before our committee following Monday. So there's options for everyone.
correct. And because it was based upon the 11% is where people are at, I guess I'd have to defer to Jennifer as to if this would be something to be able to go down. in the back row.
What you have in all of the department line items for health insurance is with the 11.9% increase. Due to the timing of getting the budget workbooks out, at the end of the expenditure section, I have just a negative adjustment in the budget workbook right now. And then as we go through the open enrollment, I'll distribute that to the appropriate departments.
Okay. Yeah, we still have to vote on that, although it was unanimous in administration. I'm sure it'll be unanimous on the council.
That's okay. Let's see, maybe it's for Chief or for Jennifer. I just having a hard time comprehending one issue. That's a big word. Health insurance increases 13,000 or dental down 4,000. What does that mean to an officer?
Nothing. Just based upon the selections that were made previously, that's what we base our budget on, working with HR and finance. So if everyone had the exact same selections and we stayed on the exact same plans, that's the way our budget was impacted for 2022. So there's no changes that we know of for the officers. It's not like they're getting more or less. It's exactly what was explained earlier this week.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You bet.
So Randy, that's what I just talked about. And basically what I was saying is that number could potentially change depending on what we do the following Monday, how we vote on that new, what we did in administration. Okay.
The budget reflects what we voted on in administration. So the reduced cost. No.
All right,
Jen,
Jennifer?
do you want to?
There's going to be changes depending on, Mayor, who decides which of the policies they're going to choose, because we've given them options.
Yes.
But the overall budget workbook that you have does have that adjustment taken into consideration. It's just not allocated to all of the departments. We did an estimate based on the plans that people currently are taking into kind of a 50-50 split. So we have that savings already figured into the budget. We'll just allocate it to the appropriate departments when we have open enrollment done. So we had to use kind of basically our best
That's a
guess
guesstimate, right?
to, yes.
Because there's no way you'll know until the individuals choose what plan
Right,
they're going to
right,
take.
but we had to,
So we really couldn't, we could if we wanted, but it would be ridiculous because we don't know at this point what individual's policy or proposal they'll take.
yeah, we have a pretty good idea.
Okay.
That's kind of how we do it every year. We look at what they had last year and we guess more or less what this year is going to look like
Okay. Well,
based upon new
my
employees.
first question was that based when you did budget? And I was told no. Now we're being told yes. So, okay, got her.
Retirement, that's controlled by the state based upon the percentage that they say that we have to contribute to the system. FICA, again, it's just based upon the numbers that are churned by the system. Work comp, that is unfortunately increasing. Our mod rate, which is again set by the state work comp board, that is going up for next year. And then that Hra funding, that was a line item that wasn't in the budget last year, and that was the one to fund that tier 2. And I'm sure that you've probably had conversations already on this. If not, this is the same thing for all the departments. That's the amount that was assessed to the police department. So our labor cost increase, so we're looking at about $4.2 million of our budget is directly related to labor. $164,000 is what the increase is, and every $50,000 roughly is 1%. So because of some of the things that we have outlined there that are beyond our control, that's where our increases are coming from the department. Some of the changes that we then made is credit card fees were reduced to reflect the usage that we have on that. And again, there is an offsetting revenue to that. So people are paying a credit card use fee. So those two kind of wash each other out. Professional management's down, medical, telephone, we reduced some of those. Building, again, we're doing good on some of the things, but yeah, we have a lot of issues that Brian would tell you about, that we just know that we continue to see the increases. We are now having to replace all the heat sensors for the fire alarm system to the tune of $1,600, I think, for the whole building. So, we just have these unexpected costs that come up. Vehicles is up slightly, 2,600. Computers, if you remember how the computer budget's done, this is our year to replace a number of the PCs of the PD. So that's one that will fluctuate depending on which department is up to get those replaced. So you'll probably see computers being down in some of the other budgets overall. Equipment, as was talked about, two things. We're kind of absorbing some of the cost of the Taser, switching to the new Taser 7. It's the ammunition again. We still have not received most of our ammunition that we ordered last year. So it's ridiculous, and the price just continues to go up. Firearms folks have been extremely creative in making sure our folks are going through training and staying current using other things. 3018 is our other equipment budget, and with everything else going on, we left that at zero. We didn't want to ask or look for any sort of increase there. Training, same thing, we kept it there. Fuel, again, tip the hat to you folks to allowing us to go to the hybrid vehicles. We're just seeing a really good cost savings with the amount of idle time that we have. I know those cars cost a little bit more, but we are certainly seeing a return on that in our fuel use, as well as the wear and tear on some of it. Alderman Taylor has a question, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The hybrid vehicle, I know you guys have such an electrical load with all the equipment that you have, and I'm just wondering how that hybrid vehicle is responding to all that equipment that you have.
Actually, we've seen no change in the performance because when the, electrical load outpaces what the hybrid portion of or the electrical portion of the engine puts out, the gasoline kicks in. So we've seen no performance issue, and most of the officers really like them too, the way they drive, and so far we've had really good luck with them.
Excellent. Thank you.
No change for the wellness program that you heard about. And then the Mcat Program, if you remember, this is one of those, so as we talked about when we got the check last week, or earlier this week, operating costs are really done through donations. However, we were setting money aside so that when we do have to replace the K9, we don't have to beg, borrow, or steal, or have a larger hit on the budget. For where we're sitting with that balance, we feel comfortable in reducing that from the 4,000 that we used to do down to 2,000. We believe that Lieutenant Nelson and his partner Kami have a good couple of years left, and we think we'll be in a good spot in that budget to be able to replace the dog when it's time for her to retire. Crossing guards, well, currently no positions are unfilled, but that varies. We actually do have some openings there. No changes in the budget for that one. CSOs, you will see an increase in that budget. We're having a heck of a time. Who wants to work and the 4th of July and direct traffic and do these kinds of things? Because these students today don't need that experience to have a one-up on everyone else to get into these jobs. So as a result, they're going to go work at Costco because they need to make more money. At the $12 roughly an hour that we're paying them now, we're suggesting to increase it to 14. And as a result, we're not going to absorb that full 14. We used to have 12 hours of coverage a day. We're actually going to reduce to 11 just to make sure we can get that rate up and make sure that we keep getting people in here. This will put us about middle of pack of the other agencies, certainly less than Appleton, maybe less than Grand Chute, but it'll be very much in line with the other departments.
I saw this in the budget, and I actually thought that the 14 was too low.
Hey, if you want to give us more,
And
we'll
I'm
be more than
serious.
happy.
I'm being serious.
Yeah.
I think you shouldn't reduce the hours, and I think that it should be $15 an hour. So I may talk to you later on about, in Jennifer, and maybe how we might be able to accomplish that.
Certainly. No, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. So then maybe my thinking is wrong, but I thought CSOs want to become cops. Why would they leave this to go to Costco to work and not be a cop anymore?
Yeah, that's because before, people would have to do CSOs or something related to the law enforcement field to really make their resume stand out a little bit more. But because it is so difficult, right now we have a hiring process open and we have less than 20 applicants. We used to have hundreds of applicants. And in fact, in the last couple ones, we had 30 to 40. And it isn't because we're not paying well, it isn't because the benefits aren't well. Well, just as Angie told you before, there's departments that have 6, 7, 8 openings. One person just left Fond du Lac to go to Neenah Police Department because she hasn't had a day off in 65 days. So it's tough out there. So they don't have to get these types of jobs. And if they can go make $14 at Costco, they're going to go work at Costco, just because that's what's paying the bills now. And they know that they'll be able to get the law enforcement job, even if they have an experience and a resume that we're working at Costco.
Oh,
So we're
really?
trying to compete with Costco and Quick Trip and Amazon and the other ones that are paying the $14 to $15.
Oh, so they go to Costco, they still want to be a cop.
Yeah.
They're still
Oh, yeah.
working. Oh, okay. I don't know, during the summer, two neighbors down had called the police and about a dog, and the CSO came over, and, you know, he's only that tall. I forget his name, but after he was done with my neighbor, I was talking with him, and the reason I asked this question was I got the impression that, you know, he's only that tall, but he wants to be a cop, and that's why he's a CSO. And he, you know, we were talking, and he was telling me the things that he needs to learn, and one of the biggest things is communication, how to communicate. So I guess I got the impression that, you know, they come here in our department as a CSO and want to, and stay to be cops. That's what my thinking was.
Yeah, and that's the idea behind it. And one of the things that we continue to look at with recruitment is how do we get good CSOs in the door so that when we have a police officer opening, because, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4? 3. 3 of the people sitting here right now started off as CSOs. So we'd love to see that. We love to cultivate our folks and bring them all the way from CSO to lieutenant.
Yeah, you know, and I've talked to other CSOs, and, you know, they're just excited to be working for you guys, the City of Menasha Police Department.
That's because they love working for us. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
how could you not like working with this group?
So I got, you know, I guess when you mentioned they would leave and go to Costco, I just thought, oh, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's an economic thing. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly know that the carbon footprint is, especially this week internationally, has been a top subject. And I'm wondering if, when we update the community service officer vehicle, if we can go to a hybrid on that or something. I know it's a little bit different vehicle. You don't have to answer that, but I'm just saying, we're talking more and more about our carbon footprint, and if we can go to an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, and I'm sure that one's probably coming up for replacement at some time. I see a lot of miles on it. Thank you.
It's actually been replaced. So that was one of the ones in the schedule for this year that ended up being replaced. So it's in process of being finished off, and it is a similar one to what we had before, unfortunately.
Thank you.
You bet. Auxiliary, oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, thank you. I know. It's
Too far to
strange.
the corner.
That's right. You mentioned that CSOs are currently covering for 12 hours of the day, and
Correct.
this hourly rate increase would move them to 11 hours a day. Do you have an idea of what time of the day CSOs are most used?
So basically, we try to have coverage from about 8 o'clock in the morning, or 7 o'clock in the morning to about 7 o'clock at night is kind of where they're at with things. So, and it also varies too, time of the year and trying to work around their schedules. Because they are generally still students and going to school, it may then vary. We might have some overlap with them, day of the week, but that's generally what we try to do. And what Sarah Swenson, who runs the CSO program for us, she's actually been sitting down now and trying to do kind of a log as to when the most CSO calls are coming, to see if it would be better to start them at 8 o'clock in the morning and stop at 7, or should they still start at around 7-ish and be done at 6. So she's kind of working on that analysis right now to see where that sweet spot would be. And, are there days of the week that, do we not need them Sunday mornings? Or, those types of things where we could shed some time there and then have that more coverage over the week. So we're working on that distribution.
My thought process was that if we had that kind of information, we might be able to determine the hourly rate, and we might be able to raise that hourly rate if we know when our CSOs are most likely to be used or needed. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but there's also the two different buckets that the CSOs do things out of. Obviously, the ones for calls for service, like we heard about the story with the dog and helping out at a crash scene. So those are the immediate things that come up. There's also a variety of different projects, follow-ups, things that they can do at any time during the workday. So even if the call load is, and I'm sure just because our officer call out is higher between 3 and 6, the slower time might be between 9 and 11, similar to our officers. So that's the time that they can do downtown parking checks. That's the time that they can do the follow-ups for a dog bite complaint. Some of the abandoned vehicle stuff that we work on, the community development doesn't work on. So there is kind of that flex that we have on that as well.
Okay. And I guess from my perspective, as I'm listening to you, maybe I don't understand everything that a CSO contributes to your department's work. So, because I'm familiar with them dropping off my packets, working on abandoned vehicles, doing the pets, lost pets, that sort of thing, but I don't know, there's obviously more that they do that I don't know about, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
You betcha. Good, okay. If we thought the problems with the CSOs and hiring the auxiliary has been even worse, we don't even get applicants for this anymore. So Lieutenant Lenz has been working with the 2 coordinators of the program, John Abrahamson and Rick. Rick. So those 2 have been trying to get out in the community a little bit more, going to the technical colleges, did kind of a tour to try to get folks to be engaged in that. Well, the CSO job is a challenging one, but the bigger problem that we have is these folks only work on weekends and holidays and special events. So now it's hard enough to get folks for the regular stuff. Now I want you to come and work 4th of July for $12 an hour. It's a bad sell. So we're looking at different ways that we can structure it. We're looking at it, can we just hire them like part-time just for the summer and have those expectations, not have it a year-round thing? We're looking at all kinds of different things. In addition, we're looking at raising theirs to match them to the $14 an hour for CSO when they're working their special events. It's not going to have an impact on the budget. We should be fine with where they're at just because we have low numbers with it right now. If we can't find people to do it for this year, what we're going to do is theoretically hire another CSO. We usually keep 4 to 5 CSOs. We might try to bump it up 1 more and then so I'm just reporting it if anyone has a concern or an issue. Kind of like what we did this year. We have a big surplus in the auxiliary budget. We're a little bit over in the CSO budget. That's what we would plan on doing to get us through that special event period during the summer to help out with that.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Chief, just quick, I was sitting here doing some math. But if you have the CSO working 11 hours a day at $14 an hour, you're spending totally of $154 for that 11-hour period. And if you would raise the pay to $15 an hour, but cut them back to only working 10 hours a day, that's $150. And even if you went really crazy and only had them work 9 hours a day, at $16 an hour, you're paying $144. So it depends on, do we need them for 11 hours? Do you need them for 10, or what do you need them for that way?
You're right, and I'd actually like to double up on them, because one of the things that we talked about when we lost Joe, and Joe went to community development, Joe helped us out as a CSO all the time. Whether it was at a fire scene directing traffic or a crash scene, picking up animals, he would do all that stuff for us as well. So the original intent was actually to come in substantially higher than what we did, in essence, to cover the loss that we had of Joe's time. So we have much less CSO coverage now than what we did a year ago because of the loss of Joe. So we're kind of taking a double hit by losing Joe and losing the time back. What we are planning to come back with for next year then is if the $14, or if we increase it a little bit more, is successful in having candidates, what we would like to do is then try to get that time back into the budget and subsequent budgets, so try to take these incremental steps. But we're actually, I would be hesitant to lose any more hours, because when we don't have it, I'd much rather pay that CSO 14 or 15 bucks an hour than the officer that's making, considerably more than the CSO for doing CSO type tasks.
Gotcha.
But it's a valid point.
Okay, thank you.
I see the green light this time.
Thank you. I'm thinking out loud now,
Okay.
but I really think that it would be hard to fill both a CSO and an auxiliary police unit in this climate right now. So I think it's a good idea to think about how you might combine those things or come up with something new, and maybe offering some sort of incentive for those holidays and extra things that you need, like time and a half, might be enticing. I mean, I know employers that offer incentives just to get people to work on Sundays right now. So just a thought, throwing it out there, and I'll look forward to what you come up with.
Sounds good.
Good luck.
Appreciate it. And then lastly, what we have on here is just the animal and jail shelter fees. So like you said, we don't know what's going to happen. This is one of those, if I give you the last 10 years of numbers, we were anywhere from 13,000 down to what we're at this year. We're doing a lot of other things to try not to have warrants issued for folks so they don't have to go to jail, and we're not footing the bill for it. So we're comfortable in going down another 1,500 in that one. And then animal fees, we've dropped over $12,000 in that in the last 6 years. So we've done some different things. We got into that different contract with the animal shelter. So we're looking up on that, and I think that that's another good cut that kind of offsets some of the other expenditures that you see in the budget. So with that, I know we've entertained some questions that we've gone along. We certainly appreciate all those. Are there other general ones that we didn't hit upon, or things that we can answer for you?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, do we ever allow the crossing guards to interact with each other, maybe just getting them in a room together, throw a pizza party? So it's kind of a desolate post that they're on by themselves, and certainly the weather and the different conditions that they're in out there. Do we allow that interaction?
So we did. There used to be a luncheon that was hosted for the crossing guards. That was something that previous councils kind of scaled back, and there was some question about that. We still have that line item, and what we do try to do is a couple times through the year, we go out and we'll deliver them coffee or hot chocolate on a cold day, or bring them a donut, or different things to, let them know we love them and we really appreciate the work that they're doing out there. But we haven't done that sit-down type of luncheon with them in a number of years.
That just might help a little bit better with some camaraderie and some interaction with each other, talk about the traffic situation out there at times. And I'd just like to say, hats off to you and your department for an outstanding job for our community. Certainly the numbers are showing that, and you can tell by the recruitment and the people available that it's a very difficult job, and we appreciate all of you doing the best for our community. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I take dog ownership very serious. And what offends me a great deal is I do get the police reports on a lot of times picking up a dog, and every time the dog's not licensed. That offends me. Because number one, then they're also probably, in most cases, not vaccinated, and that becomes a health issue in our community. I think we need to take a more serious position when it comes to licensing your animal in the city of Menasha. We kind of poo-poo it, and I don't think that's the route we should be taking. I think in our next newsletter, I told the mayor this before, we need to remind the community that it's important that their dog is licensed and vaccinated, and there's a license for a cat. I've never been a cat owner. I don't know if you vaccinate them or not, but you do? So, I mean, I remember as a young 20-year-old alderman, there was a serious case of rabies in the city of Menasha, and what that individual had to go through because the person didn't have a license and the person did not have their animal vaccinated. And so I always think back to that. So I don't want our department to just poo-poo this anymore. And I want the city of Menasha, when we do our newsletter, to take that issue serious, that there's a reason for this. We don't do this because we want to collect some money.
Yeah, is there something specific that you'd like to see from it? So anytime that
I
we
know the
have,
best procedure for you guys is just to say, you know what, you need to get your dog license, and that, you know, that's probably the best thing to do is to try to accomplish that. But there's just too many individuals who basically don't care.
so,
And,
yeah, if the dog has police contact, if you will,
yeah,
they're required then to get the license.
Right.
And that's one of the things the CSOs actually spend a fair amount of time on. So if it's a dog at large, or a dog bite, or a barking dog, any of those things, if we find that the dog does not have a license, they are then given a warning
Yes.
period to get the
and
license.
I noticed that in
Okay.
mixed reports.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I like that.
And if
but-
they don't over a period of time, then they get a ticket for it.
Right.
So,
And what I want somehow for us to relay out there is that this is going to become a more serious issue. Now, I know Randy talked a little bit about the fire pit thing, and I've addressed this last year too, but there's fire pits everywhere. And I know darn well these people did not go and get their fire permit. And then when something does happen, it's going to be you or the fire department or the city hall that's going to get blamed for everything because we didn't do a well enough job as
Sure.
far as enforcing that, so. And those are minor things, but I don't know why they bother me so much.
you know, it's good that the minor things are bothering you and you're not coming here and
Sure.
telling us that
Is that
there's
right?
major things. I mean,
Right?
no, truly, because, you know, that, if that's our biggest issue in Menasha, oh,
Yeah.
thank God.
Yeah,
You know, truly. Yep.
exactly.
Go for it. Yep.
Thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Just one other thing, I forgot to thank Nick for his crime report that we get, and the public really likes that too, and it really shows how much domestic issues there are in our city. And back when I was younger, there was a radar gun on every corner pointing at you, and I could see how we transitioned from traffic into the homes, and it certainly, that report shows that. Thank you for that report.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you to your staff this evening for coming and sharing with us.